The massive Galactic Council chamber on Centauri Prime was filled with representatives from 17 different alien species. The huge room had a high domed ceiling with twinkling lights that looked like stars. In the center was a round speaking platform, surrounded by curved tables where the diplomats sat according to their alliance or neutrality status. For the past 15 years, humanity had stayed out of the terrible war between the Zarathi Empire and the Veldarian Alliance. Many worlds had been destroyed in this conflict. Millions had died. But Earth and its colonies had carefully maintained their neutrality, trading with both sides and offering help to war victims while refusing to join the fighting. Ambassador Daniel Wright of Earth sat at the human delegation table, looking calm despite the tension in the room. He was a tall man with gray hair at his temples and deep lines around his eyes from years of difficult negotiations. His dark blue diplomatic uniform was simple compared to the elaborate dress of many alien representatives. Wright checked his data tablet one last time, reviewing the message from Earth's government. His orders were clear, though he knew the consequences would be enormous. Next to him sat his deputy, Lisa Carter. She was younger, with sharp eyes that missed nothing and a mind that could remember every detail of every treaty ever signed. She leaned toward Wright. "The Zarathi seem agitated today," she whispered. "They know something's coming." Wright nodded slightly. Admiral Nelson's intelligence was correct, as usual. The moderator, a tall being with silver skin who belonged to one of the galaxy's oldest species, called the emergency session to order. The chamber fell silent as the Zarathi ambassador rose to speak first. The Zarathi were reptilian beings with black scales that gleamed under the chamber lights. Their ambassador stood nearly 7 feet tall, with yellow eyes with narrow vertical pupils. When he spoke, his voice rumbled through the translation system. "Once again, we gather to discuss Veldarian aggression against Zarathi territory," he said, his clawed hand gesturing at the holographic display showing recent battle zones. 3 more Zarathi worlds have suffered attacks. The Veldarians claim to fight for freedom, yet they destroy civilian centers without mercy. The Veldarian representative stood up immediately. Veldarians had almost transparent skin through which pulses of light showed their emotions. Right now, the lights flashing beneath the ambassador's skin were angry red. "These are military bases disguised as civilian settlements," the Veldarian countered. "The Zarathi hide behind their own people while planning more conquests. They have already taken 12 of our worlds and stripped them of resources." The familiar accusations continued back and forth while Wright waited patiently. This was how every council meeting had gone for years. Accusations, denials, and demands while the neutral worlds tried to calm both sides. Finally, the Zarathi ambassador turned his attention to the human delegation. "And what of the humans?" he asked, his voice full of contempt. "They continue to profit from both sides while contributing nothing to galactic stability. They sell medical supplies to the Veldarians while providing industrial resources to us. Their duplicity knows no bounds." Several representatives murmured in agreement. Earth's neutrality had made humanity wealthy but not popular. "The humans must choose a side," the Zarathi ambassador continued, pointing a clawed finger at Wright. "Or perhaps they plan to wait until both great powers have weakened each other, then step in to dominate the galaxy themselves." Lisa Carter nudged Wright gently. "They're trying to force our hand," she whispered. Wright nodded almost imperceptibly. "Right on schedule," he replied quietly. The moderator turned to the human delegation. "Ambassador Wright, do you wish to respond to these accusations?" Wright stood slowly. The chamber went quiet as he walked to the central podium with measured steps. Everyone expected the usual human response, careful diplomatic language that committed to nothing while promising consideration of all viewpoints. "Honored representatives of the Galactic Council," Wright began, his voice steady and clear. "For 15 years, humanity has watched this conflict with growing concern. We have provided humanitarian aid to victims on both sides. We have offered to mediate peace talks 7 times. We have hoped for a peaceful resolution." He paused, looking around the chamber. Every eye was on him. During this time, we have been accused of cowardice by some, and of calculated self-interest by others. We have accepted these criticisms while continuing to work for stability. The Zarathi ambassador made a dismissive gesture, but Wright continued before he could speak. However, recent developments have forced us to reconsider our position. Oh, ripple of surprise moved through the chamber. This was not the usual human response. 3 weeks ago, our intelligence services intercepted detailed plans from the Zarathi High Command. These plans revealed preparations for attacks on human colony, worlds including New Eden, with its population of 12 million civilians. Wright pressed a button on the podium, and the holographic display changed to show Zarathi battle plans. The Zarathi ambassador hissed in shock. "Those are forged documents," he shouted. "They are authenticated and genuine," Wright replied calmly. "The Zarathi Empire has decided that human neutrality is no longer acceptable. They plan to force our hand through violence." He paused again, his gaze sweeping across the assembled delegates. As of Oro 600 Earth Standard Time today, the United Earth government has formally decided to join the war. The chamber erupted in chaos. Many representatives jumped to their feet, shouting questions or expressions of surprise. The Zarathi delegation was in disarray, with the ambassador roaring for order while his aides frantically communicated with their homeworld. The Veldarian ambassador's skin pulsed with bright blue lights of hope and excitement. "Humanity stands with the Veldarian Alliance," Wright continued when the moderator restored some order. "We do not take this step lightly. Earth has not fought an interstellar war in its history, but we will not stand by while our people are threatened." The moderator's silver face showed rare emotion. "Ambassador Wright, this announcement changes the balance of power significantly. Are you prepared for the consequences of this decision?" Wright nodded solemnly. "We are. And there is something else the council should know." He paused, and the chamber went silent again. Operation Thunderbolt began 30 minutes ago. Human and Veldarian forces are already engaging Zarathi targets in 3 sectors. This announcement caused even greater uproar. The Zarathi ambassador knocked over his chair as he stood in fury. "Treachery!" he roared. "You planned this all along. This is nothing but a cowardly surprise attack." Wright remained calm. "We simply chose the timing of a conflict the Zarathi had already decided was inevitable. The difference is that we strike at military targets only, not civilian populations as the Zarathi planned to do." As Wright returned to his seat, Lisa Carter gave him a small nod of approval. Around them, the council chamber had descended into frantic discussions and arguments. The galaxy's delicate balance of power had just shifted dramatically. "How long until we hear from Admiral Nelson?" Wright asked quietly. "The first reports should come in within 2 hours," Carter replied. "But given the element of surprise, I expect good news." Wright watched the furious Zarathi delegation and the excited Veldarians. After 15 years of careful neutrality, humanity had finally chosen a side. There would be no going back now. The real test of human strength and determination was just beginning. 2 weeks before the dramatic announcement at the Galactic Council, Ambassador Daniel Wright sat in the secure conference room aboard the Earth Orbital Diplomatic Station Liberty Point. The station was positioned in high orbit around Earth, offering a breathtaking view of the blue planet through the large reinforced windows. Across from Wright sat President Olivia Martinez, leader of the United Earth government. She was a woman in her late 50s with short dark hair streaked with silver and sharp, intelligent eyes that missed nothing. Between them, a holographic projection showed classified intelligence reports and the positions of Zarathi warships near human colony worlds. "They're systematically positioning themselves, Daniel," President Martinez said, her face serious. 3 battle fleets within striking distance of New Eden. The intelligence is solid." Wright studied the projection carefully. Red dots representing Zarathi vessels formed clear patterns around the outer human colonies. Chief Science Advisor Dr. Alan Blackwell stood beside the holographic display. He was tall and thin with wire-rimmed glasses and hands that moved constantly as he spoke. He touched the controls and brought up intercepted Zarathi communications. "We've decoded enough to know they're not just posturing," Blackwell explained. These messages between their fleet commanders specifically mention neutralizing human worlds before our quantum shield technology can be completed. Wright ran a hand through his graying hair. The neutrality policy has kept us safe for 15 years. Are we certain abandoning it is our best option? Defense Secretary Samantha Wilson joined the conversation. She was a former military officer with a direct manner of speaking. The Zarathi respect only strength, Wilson said firmly. Our analysis suggests they plan to strike regardless of our neutrality. At least by choosing the timing ourselves, we maintain some advantage. And the Veldarians? Wright asked. Have we approached them yet? Admiral Frank Nelson has had preliminary discussions with their military command, Wilson replied. They're desperate for allies. They've been losing ground for the past year and are willing to share advanced weapons technology in exchange for our support. President Martinez stood up and moved to the viewport overlooking Earth. She stood silently for a moment, the weight of her decision visible in her posture. I've consulted with the Security Council, the Joint Chiefs, and representatives from every human colony, she finally said, turning back to face them. The decision is made, Daniel. We're joining the Veldarian Alliance. She returned to the table and looked directly at Wright. I need you to deliver the message at the Galactic Council. Make it clear this isn't just about self-preservation. We're taking a moral stand against Zarathi aggression and expansion. Wright nodded solemnly. The Zarathi will claim we've been planning this all along. Let them, Martinez said firmly. History will judge us by our actions, not their propaganda. After the meeting, Wright found his deputy, Lisa Carter, waiting outside the conference room. From her expression, he could tell she already knew about the decision. How do you think the council will react? She asked as they walked toward the shuttle bay. With shock initially, Wright replied. Then fear. Humanity has been underestimated for too long. They're about to discover just how formidable we can be. The neutral faction won't be happy, Carter said. Especially the Galtari. They've always counted on our support for their peace initiatives. Wright nodded. We'll need to approach them privately before the announcement. Explain our reasons. They reached the shuttle that would take them back to their diplomatic vessel. As they prepared to board, Wright's communication device signaled an incoming message. It was from Admiral Frank Nelson, the commander of Earth's Space Forces. Ambassador. Nelson's face appeared on the small screen. The admiral had a weathered face with a neatly trimmed beard and alert eyes. Operation Thunderbolt preparations are proceeding on schedule. My fleet commanders report all ships and personnel are ready. Any sign the Zarathi suspect what's coming? Wright asked. Nelson shook his head. None. Our intelligence suggests they believe their plans are still secret. They'll never expect us to strike first. Good, Wright replied. Remember, Admiral, the President wants minimal casualties on both sides. We're trying to force a negotiation, not start a war of extermination. Understood, sir, Nelson said. Primary targets are military only. Shipyards, weapon platforms, and command centers. My people know the objectives. After the call ended, Wright and Carter boarded the shuttle. As it departed Liberty Point, Wright looked out at Earth below them. He wondered how many worlds had faced similar moments of decision throughout galactic history. How many had chosen to fight rather than submit? 3 days later, Wright was aboard the diplomatic vessel Swift Journey, traveling to Centauri, prime for the Galactic Council meeting. In his private quarters, he reviewed the final plans for Operation Thunderbolt with Admiral Nelson through a secure channel. All task forces are in position, Nelson reported. The Veldarians have coordinated their forces with ours. We strike 30 minutes after your announcement at the Council. And the quantum shield technology? Wright asked. Is it ready for deployment? Nelson nodded. The first ships have been equipped. It's untested in actual combat, but the simulations are promising. The Zarathi weapons shouldn't be able to penetrate it. Let's hope the simulations are accurate, Wright said. A lot of human lives depend on it. After the call ended, Wright practiced his speech for the Council one more time. The words needed to be clear and direct, leaving no doubt about humanity's position while also explaining the moral justification for their decision. On the day of the Council meeting, As the swift journey approached Centauri Prime, Wright received a final message from President Martinez. The Security Council vote was unanimous, she told him. Operation Thunderbolt is fully authorized. Remember, Daniel, this isn't just about protecting our colonies. It's about taking a stand against an empire that has destroyed dozens of civilizations. The galaxy needs to know that humanity won't stand by while others suffer. I understand, Wright replied. And after the announcement? Come home, Martinez said. We'll need you here to manage the diplomatic fallout. Other species will be choosing sides quickly. We need to build the strongest coalition possible. As the swift journey docked at Centauri Prime's orbital station, Wright looked out at the busy spaceport. Ships from all 17 spacefaring civilizations moved in careful patterns, following traffic control instructions. How many of those civilizations would be enemies by tomorrow? How many would be allies? Lisa Carter joined him at the viewport. The Zarathi delegation arrived an hour ago, she said. Their ambassador seems confident today. He doesn't know what's coming. Wright nodded. Neither does anyone else. By this time tomorrow, the galaxy will be changed forever. They gathered their materials and prepared to disembark. The path to the council chamber would take them past delegations from many worlds. Wright would need to maintain a neutral expression, giving no hint of what was about to happen. Ready? Carter asked. Wright took a deep breath. As ready as anyone can be when they're about to change history. Together they left the ship and walked toward the moment that would end 15 years of human neutrality and begin a new chapter in galactic history. The human declaration of war was not just empty words. As Ambassador Wright finished his speech at the Galactic Council, Operation Thunderbolt was already beginning across 3 sectors of space. Aboard the Earth Fleet flagship Defiance, Admiral Frank Nelson stood before the massive tactical display. The large screen showed hundreds of human and Veldarian ships moving toward their targets. Nelson was a tall, broad-shouldered man with a neatly trimmed beard and calm eyes that had seen many battles in Earth's regional conflicts. This, however, would be humanity's first interstellar war. Around him, the bridge crew worked with quiet efficiency. Years of training had prepared them for this moment, though none could completely hide their nervousness about facing the feared Zarathi fleet. All task forces report ready, Admiral, announced Communications Officer Eric Morgan, a young man with dark skin and steady hands. Nelson nodded. Send the execution order. Morgan pressed a series of buttons on his console. Order sent, sir. All forces acknowledge. Throughout human space, military vessels that had been secretly positioned over the previous months suddenly activated their engines and moved toward predetermined targets. At the same time, Veldarian forces launched from their hidden bases. Together, they created a massive pincer movement against key Zarathi supply depots and forward bases. The primary target was a massive Zarathi resupply station orbiting a gas giant in the Procyon system. The station was nearly 2 miles long and contained enough fuel, weapons, and supplies to support Zarathi fleets for months. Commander Catherine Rivera led the assault team from the heavy cruiser Intrepid. She stood on her bridge watching the tactical display as her ship approached the Zarathi station. The Intrepid was using advanced stealth technology that made it nearly invisible to Zarathi sensors. Stealth systems holding, reported her tactical officer, Lieutenant John Baker. Zarathi defense grid hasn't detected us. Rivera was a veteran of Earth's space security forces. She had short brown hair and a small scar above her right eye from an earlier mission. She studied the holographic display showing their approach vector. Deploy EMP warheads on my mark, she ordered. Remember, we want to disable, not destroy. Those supply warehouses contain resources we need. Baker nodded. EMP warheads ready, Commander. Rivera waited until they were in optimal position. Mark, she said. The Intrepid launched a series of specialized missiles toward the Zarathi station. These weapons were designed to release powerful electromagnetic pulses that would disable electronic systems without causing physical destruction. Seconds later, the EMPs detonated around the station. The effect was immediate. Lights across the massive structure flickered and died. Defense systems went offline. Communications arrays stopped transmitting. Direct hit, Baker reported. Zarathi systems are down. Rivera nodded. Launch boarding shuttles. Security teams first, then engineering. Across the Intrepid's launch bays, teams of human soldiers in armored spacesuits boarded shuttles. The small craft shot from the cruiser toward the disabled station. Similar scenes played out from other human and Veldarian ships surrounding the target. Rivera watched the operation unfold on her display. Main docking ports secured. Engineering teams moving to central control. Within an hour, the entire station was under human Veldarian control. The Zarathi crew, caught completely by surprise, had surrendered after brief resistance. The largest Zarathi supply depot outside their home systems had fallen with minimal casualties on either side. Similar operations across 3 sectors yielded comparable results. The Zarathi, having never considered humans a military threat, had left critical vulnerabilities in their defensive postures. Back on the Defiance, Admiral Nelson received the success reports with grim satisfaction. Inform Ambassador Wright that Phase 1 is complete. The Zarathi supply chain has been compromised. His executive officer, Commander Grace Miller, studied the strategic display. She was an analytical thinker with sharp features and quick eyes that missed nothing. "Sir, Zarathi High Command will respond with everything they have," she said. "Their entire military doctrine is based on overwhelming retaliation." Nelson nodded. "That's what we're counting on. They'll pull forces from the Veldarian front to deal with us." "And we'll be ready?" Miller asked. "No one is ever truly ready. For war, Commander," Nelson replied. "But we've spent 15 years preparing while they thought we were just playing politics. They have no idea what humanity has been developing in our deep research facilities." Miller looked at the display. Again. "The quantum shield technology?" Nelson nodded. "Among other things. Dr. Reynolds and her team have made breakthroughs the Zarathi can't imagine." On the captured Zarathi station, Commander Rivera supervised the securing of valuable resources. Her teams were cataloging weapons, fuel cells, and raw materials that would support the Alliance war effort. "Commander," Baker called from a console he had reactivated. "I've accessed part of their central database. There are deployment plans for the entire Zarathi Third Fleet." Rivera moved quickly to his side. "Can you download them?" Baker nodded. "Already doing it. This is exactly what Admiral Nelson needs." In another sector, the Veldarian cruiser light, Dancer engaged a Zarathi patrol group. The Veldarian ships were smaller but faster than their Zarathi counterparts. Their hulls pulsed with the same bioluminescent patterns as their crew's skin. Captain Velix of the Light Dancer watched as human ships joined the battle, their new quantum shields absorbing Zarathi energy weapons without damage. The humans fight. "Well," Velix said to his second-in-command, "perhaps there is hope for our alliance after all." Within hours, the patrol group was disabled or destroyed. The Light Dancer and its human allies continued toward their next objective. News of the attacks spread quickly through Zarathi communication channels. In their throne world of Zarax Prime, the Zarathi High Command gathered in emergency session. War. Leader Sarek, the highest military authority in the Empire, hissed in anger as reports came in. "These humans dare to attack us? They will learn what happens to those who challenge the Empire." His advisor, Krell, displayed the extent of the damage on a large holographic map. "They have crippled our supply lines in 3 sectors, War Leader." The attacks were precisely coordinated. "How did they penetrate our defenses so easily?" Sarek demanded. "Their technology appears more advanced than our intelligence suggested," Krell replied. "And they have shared it with the Veldarians." Sarek's scales darkened with rage. "Redirect the 5th and 7th fleets. I want these human worlds burned to ash." 3 days after Operation Thunderbolt began, Ambassador Wright received the full report in his temporary quarters on Centauri Prime. He read it carefully, noting the successes and the few failures. Lisa Carter sat across from him, reviewing the diplomatic fallout. 7 previously neutral species have requested meetings, she said. 3 are leaning toward joining our alliance. Wright nodded. The balance is shifting faster than we expected. The Zarathi are already moving large fleets toward human space, Carter warned. Intelligence suggests they plan massive retaliation. As expected, Wright replied. Admiral Nelson is deploying the defense grid now. When the Zarathi arrive, they'll find more than they bargained for. He looked out the window at the stars. The real war is just beginning, Lisa. But at least we've started it on our terms. 3 days after Operation Thunderbolt, Ambassador Wright stood in the eye of a diplomatic storm. The Galactic Council had convened an emergency session, with the Zarathi demanding severe penalties against Earth and its colonies. The Grand Council chamber was even more crowded than before. Representatives from species that rarely attended meetings had come to witness this historic shift in galactic politics. The air hummed with tension and expectation. Before the session began, the Zarathi ambassador approached Wright in the antechamber. The reptilian diplomat loomed over him, his black scales gleaming under the lights and his yellow eyes narrowed to slits. Your species has made a fatal mistake, human, the Zarathi said, his voice a low hiss. The Empire has crushed civilizations far more advanced than yours. Wright met the reptilian's gaze steadily. Perhaps. But none of them were human. The Zarathi ambassador's tail twitched in anger, but he said nothing more before moving to his delegations table. When the council session began, accusations flew across the chamber. The Zarathi delegation presented evidence of human weapons development programs stretching back years, claiming it proved humanity had always intended to enter the war. The humans have deceived this council for more than a decade, the Zarathi ambassador declared. They claimed neutrality while building warships and developing weapons specifically designed to combat our forces. The chamber erupted in murmurs as the Zarathi displayed images of human military installations and shipyards. When Wright took the podium, he didn't deny the evidence. His approach was direct and honest. Yes, we prepared, he acknowledged. Just as any prudent civilization would when surrounded by a galactic war. But our hand was forced by Zarathi plans to attack our colonies. He activated a holographic display showing intercepted Zarathi battle plans targeting human worlds. These were obtained 3 weeks ago. They detail planned strikes against civilian targets, including our colony on New Eden with its population of 12 million. The Veldarian ambassador's skin pulsed with bright patterns as he stood to support Wright's claims. The Zarathi have used this same strategy against 17 other species, he said. They declare neutrals to be enemies, then attack without warning. Wright continued, his voice growing stronger. Humanity sought neutrality for 15 years. We provided humanitarian aid to both sides. We hosted peace conferences that the Zarathi repeatedly sabotaged. His tone hardened as he looked directly at the Zarathi delegation. Now we've chosen sides, yes. We stand with those fighting against expansion through genocide and planetary destruction. We stand against those who mistake restraint for weakness. The representatives from the neutral faction, led by the philosophical Galtari, requested permission to speak. The Galtari were ancient beings with silvery skin and large, thoughtful eyes. Their spokesperson approached the central podium with slow, deliberate movements. We have observed humanity since their arrival on the galactic stage, the Galtari said in a melodic voice. They are young, impulsive, but not without wisdom. Perhaps most importantly, they bring a new perspective to this conflict. The Galtari turned to face the entire chamber. We do not condone war, but we cannot ignore the evidence presented today. If the Zarathi planned attacks on neutral human worlds, then humanity's response, while regrettable, is understandable. This statement from the normally strictly neutral Galtari caused a sensation in the chamber. The Zarathi delegation protested loudly, while other species began urgent discussions among themselves. After the session ended, several previously non-aligned species requested private meetings with Wright. Lisa Carter managed the sudden diplomatic rush, organizing meetings in order of strategic importance. The Kelbrid Confederation is offering technological exchange, she told Wright as they moved between meetings. And the Meridian worlds are considering joining the alliance. Wright nodded thoughtfully. The balance is shifting. The Zarathi never expected to fight a multi-front war. The most significant meeting was with the Galtari representative, in a small, peaceful room designed for their species, with flowing water and soft light. Wright sat across from the ancient diplomat. Your people have taken a grave step, the Galtari said. War changes those who wage it, Ambassador. We had no choice, Wright replied. There is always choice, the Galtari countered gently. But I understand your reasoning. What do you seek from us? Wright leaned forward slightly. Your matter phasing technology would be invaluable if incorporated into our defensive systems. The Galtari's large eyes blinked slowly. We have maintained strict technological neutrality for millennia. Yes, Wright acknowledged, but you've never faced extinction before. The Zarathi won't stop with humanity and the Veldarians. If they win this war, they'll eventually come for everyone. The Galtari was silent for a long moment. I will bring your request to our Wisdom Council. That is all I can promise. That evening, in his temporary quarters on Centauri Prime, Wright received a secure transmission from President Martinez. Her image appeared, tension evident in her face and posture. The Zarathi have withdrawn their embassy from Earth, she informed him. Intelligence suggests they're consolidating forces for a major counterattack. As expected, Wright replied. How is Admiral Nelson's Phase 2 progressing? Ahead of schedule. The quantum shield network will be operational within days. She leaned closer to the camera. What about the Galtari? Did they agree to share their technology? They're considering it, Wright said. It's more than they've offered anyone in 1,000 years. Martinez nodded. Good work, Daniel. We need every advantage we can get. The Zarathi are moving their main battle fleets toward our outer colonies. How are our people responding to the war? Wright asked. With determination, Martinez replied. There were some protests initially, but when we released the evidence of planned Zarathi attacks, public opinion shifted strongly in favor of the war effort. Production has increased at all shipyards. Volunteers for the fleet are at record levels. After the call ended, Wright stepped to the window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, human and Veldarian ships were preparing for the Zarathi counterattack. Brave men and women who had never expected to fight were now on the front lines of an interstellar war. On Earth and its colonies, factories were converting to military production. Scientists were working around the clock to improve weapons and defenses. The entire human civilization was mobilizing for a conflict that might last years. Wright thought about the Galtari's words. War changes those who wage it. Would humanity emerge from this conflict stronger, or would they lose something essential about themselves in the process? Lisa Carter entered his quarters with new diplomatic messages. The Meridian worlds have officially requested to join our alliance, she said. And 3 other species want to open negotiations. Wright turned from the window. The galaxy is choosing sides faster than we anticipated. The Zarathi have made many enemies over the centuries, Carter replied. No one expected them to be challenged like this. It's giving others courage. Courage will be needed in the days ahead, Wright said. The real test is just beginning. 6 months had passed since humanity joined the war. The initial advantages of surprise had faded, and now both sides were locked in a brutal struggle across dozens of star systems. The Zarathi had responded to Operation Thunderbolt with massive counterattacks against human and Veldarian positions. The human colony world of Horizon fell after a 3-week battle that left much of its surface in ruins. The mining outpost on Ceres Prime was destroyed completely. Yet for every defeat, the Human-Veldarian alliance secured a victory elsewhere. The war had reached a tense balance, with neither side able to gain a clear advantage. On the Earth Fleet command ship Defiance, now marked with battle scars from multiple engagements, Admiral Frank Nelson convened a war council. Around a large table sat representatives from the Veldarians and several other species that had joined the alliance. The Admiral stood before a large holographic display showing the current state of the war. Red areas indicated Zarathi control, blue showed Alliance territory, and yellow marked contested systems. The Zarathi have adapted to our conventional tactics, Nelson acknowledged, pointing to several areas on the map. Their new shield configurations are countering our standard weapons, but they remain vulnerable to what they don't understand. Dr. Susan Reynolds, lead scientist from the Quantum Shield Project, stepped forward. She was a small woman with intense eyes and hands that moved quickly as she spoke. Her work had saved countless lives already, as the quantum shields had protected human ships from Zarathi weapons. The integration of Galtari phasing technology with our quantum shields has produced something unprecedented, she said, activating a smaller display showing technical diagrams. We can now create localized phase barriers that Zarathi weapons simply cannot penetrate. The Veldarian fleet commander's translucent skin pulsed with hopeful blue patterns. How quickly can this technology be deployed? We've equipped 3 battle groups already, Nelson replied. The Zarathi don't know about it yet. We're preparing Operation Checkmate, a direct strike at their primary shipyards in the Deneb sector. The Veldarian commander's skin flashed with concern. The Deneb shipyards are their most heavily defended installation outside the Zarathi home system. No fleet has ever penetrated their defenses. No fleet has ever had phase shield technology, Nelson countered. We'll be able to pass through their defensive screens like they aren't even there. At the Galactic Council, Ambassador Wright continued his diplomatic work. The evidence of planned Zarathi attacks on human colonies had swayed many previously neutral parties. Creating the largest united front in galactic history, Wright worked tirelessly to maintain this coalition, addressing concerns and mediating disputes between allied species. His calm, steady approach had earned him respect throughout the galactic community. 2 weeks after the War Council, Operation Checkmate launched. The enhanced human Veldarian fleet struck at the heart of Zarathi. Military production. Ships protected by the revolutionary phase shields approached the massive shipyards orbiting a red giant star in the Deneb system. Aboard the assault cruiser Intrepid, Commander Catherine Rivera watched as Zarathi energy weapons passed harmlessly through her ship's phase shields. Main defensive grid penetrated, reported Lieutenant John Baker from his tactical station. Zarathi vessels moving to intercept, but their weapons are having no effect. Rivera nodded with satisfaction. Begin Phase 2, target their power cores and command nodes. Human and Veldarian ships systematically disabled the massive shipyards while suffering minimal damage themselves. The Zarathi defenders, faced with weapons that couldn't be stopped by their shields, fought desperately but ineffectively. Rivera led a boarding team to the central command station. Wearing advanced battle armor, she and her soldiers moved through the Zarathi facility, securing key areas and capturing important personnel. They never expected us to reach this far into their territory, she told her team as they secured the central control hub. Their entire strategy is based on fear and intimidation. They don't know how to react when someone stands up to them. Lieutenant Baker downloaded critical intelligence from the Zarathi computers before they could be erased. Commander, I've found their deployment plans for the next 3 months. They've been pulling forces from their core worlds for this fight. This intelligence proved decisive. With the Zarathi shipyards neutralized and their defensive positions revealed, Admiral Nelson coordinated a series of precise strikes that crippled their ability to continue the war at its previous intensity. 2 months later, Ambassador Wright received a private communication request from the Zarathi High Command, the first indication they might be willing to discuss peace terms. In the secure communication chamber on Centauri Prime, Wright faced the Supreme Commander of Zarathi forces. The commander's black scales had dulled somewhat, showing the strain of leading a losing war effort. Your species has proven unexpectedly formidable, the Zarathi commander acknowledged, his mandibles clicking with reluctant respect. The High Council is prepared to discuss a cessation of hostilities. Wright maintained a neutral expression. The Alliance will accept nothing less than full withdrawal from occupied Veldarian worlds and recognition of the sovereignty of all member states. Impossible, the commander hissed. Such terms would mean the end of the Empire as we know it. Perhaps, Wright conceded, but it would also mean the beginning of something new, a galaxy where cooperation might finally take precedence over conquest. The negotiations were difficult and lengthy. 3 times they nearly collapsed completely. But the continued military successes of the Alliance fleet strengthened Wright's position at the negotiating table. After 6 weeks of intense discussion, the Zarathi finally agreed to a ceasefire and preliminary peace terms. They would withdraw from recently conquered Veldarian worlds and recognize the borders of all Alliance members. In return, they would keep their core territory and avoid war crime trials for their leadership. Back on Earth, President Martinez addressed the United Earth Parliament about the preliminary peace agreement. Our entry into this war was not sought, but it has revealed humanity's place in the galactic community, she said to the assembled representatives. We have demonstrated not just our military capabilities, but our capacity for alliance building, for innovation under pressure, and for principled leadership. She paused, looking across the chamber. The path to lasting peace will be as challenging as the road to war was inevitable, but humanity will walk that path with the same determination that has brought us to this moment of possibility. Ambassador Wright returned to Earth a hero. As his shuttle landed at the main spaceport, he could see thousands of people gathered to welcome him home. Many held signs thanking him for his service to humanity. Lisa Carter met him as he stepped off the shuttle. The president is waiting to brief you on the next phase of negotiations, she said. But she wanted me to give you this first. She handed him a small data device. On it was a single message from Martinez. History will remember you as the diplomat who went to war to secure peace. Thank you, Daniel. Wright looked up at the blue sky of Earth. After months in space and on alien worlds, it was good to be home. The war wasn't completely over. The final peace treaty would take months more to negotiate. But the worst of the fighting had ended. Humanity had joined the war and changed the galaxy forever. No species would ever again mistake human restraint for weakness. And perhaps, just perhaps, a more just and peaceful galactic order might emerge from the ashes of conflict.